Howdy y'all, welcome to the almost 2 years overdue Jackdaw theory time. That was promised all the way back in Halloween of 2020, around when it was meant to come out. And then it didn't. And now it's 2022 in summer, so that's nice. I got a proper punishment though, because even before it was confirmed that Jackdaw was guilty, I had theorized it. But now it's gonna sound stupid, like I think he's guilty when it's already been confirmed that he feels guilty. So that's my punishment. This theory time won't just be about Jackdaw's character, but also surrounding the two Halloween events of Entry Point. I was originally going to combine the director and Jackdaw into a theory time because we all know just how much they're like peas in a pod, which is not at all, but Jackdaw's earned enough new evidence over time to not have to share an episode. I know y'all have been waiting for this one for a very long time. Anyways, theory time. Let's begin with Jackdaw himself before we get to the Halloween event. Jackdaw was ordered to kill the rest of the directors by Kingfisher, aka the director. Once he did, he was betrayed, as the director revealed what Jackdaw did to Rose and Ren, obviously without including the part where he was told to do it. Ren attempts to kill him, but Rose saves Jackdaw. Jackdaw is infuriated and creates Phoenix with Rose to take down Halcyon, and the Shadow War soon begins. He somehow gets Ryan Ross, an anxious multimillionaire, to fund Phoenix, yet he's soon assassinated. After many missions and events that result in Ren, Rose, and Finch, aka the Freelancer, dead, Phoenix reigns victorious. I'm immediately diving into the beginning because the script is long. Firstly, how did the director convince Jackdaw to murder the other directors? The answer is, surprise surprise, manipulation. In the lock code Providence, Jackdaw and the director exchange a conversation about the planned assassination of Masuda and Levin, two of the old directors. At the end, they say these quotes. The director says, "I don't think this paranoia will be helpful for them, Mr. Miles." Jackdaw responds, "Understood, sir." The director then replies, "Let's put this to rest. I'll sleep easier when it's taken care of." End quote. The director says the last sentence as if the other remaining directors need to be killed, like they're a threat. I believe that Kingfisher has convinced Jackdaw that the other directors are threats to Halcyon and had to be erased. Yeah, it's hard to imagine Jackdaw being tricked, or someone somehow convincing a very loyal member that every leader but themselves were bad. But that's a director for you. He's incredibly cunning and manipulative. I really mean it when I say I wouldn't be surprised if he convinced someone that water wasn't wet. In addition, they were best friends before this. They've been best friends for a very long time. The picture at the end of Sunset of them together confirms this, so there was also a lot of years of trust and friendship involved. Now, I've already established this time and time again in the Kill House, Rose and Ren theories, but Jackdaw was insanely blinded by thirst for revenge and anger. He definitely cared for Rose, the Freelancer, and Sparrow, but in his conquest, he unintentionally hurt and neglected them all. Rose's mysterious message at the end of the Kill House nightmare mode is for him, wishing for Jackdaw to open up his eye and realize what he is doing to all of them. Now on to the 2020 Halloween event. Once you get down to the last 6 pumpkins, the game will start giving you little pieces of a poem. Here is the poem as a whole. Quote, 6 little pumpkins, turning of the wheel. 5 little pumpkins, none of them real. 4 little pumpkins, whispers in the dark. 3 little pumpkins, on their last spark. 2 little pumpkins, nothing left to dread. 1 little pumpkin, already dead. End quote. This is the last part. The lights will flicker out and you're suddenly taken to the triple question mark mission. You're in a mysterious location and continuously fight SWAT as Jackdaw speaks to you from nowhere, saying, quote, "Hey, you did a good job out there. I'm sorry it ended like this." Then he pauses and carries on. "The director is dead. I took him out. We did it. We took down Halcyon. I wish you could have seen it. You did a hell of a job, kid. I'm proud of you. Rest in peace." One of the first things I can confirm is that he's definitely talking to the Freelancer, or Finch. He addresses them by kid. He only calls the Freelancer kid. In Pyre, with Rose, and all the times we've seen Sparrow, Jackdaw called them both by their name. Side note, this makes me wonder, why does only the Freelancer get that nickname? Rose knew Jackdaw for much longer and was much closer to him at first. It's also strange because if this was a special nickname, why did he give it to Finch before they even got close to each other? They were enemies when they first met. I think I can solve this. Jackdaw says, quote, "You know I used to be like you," end quote. When he says that, I wouldn't say he means that they followed the director once like he did. I think it's Finch's attitude that amuses Jackdaw so much, but it could probably also be both. They seem to act distant and want to get to the chase, but that's not how they really are, and Jackdaw can tell. Not only that, he knows how very close Finch is to Rose, and I'm certain Jackdaw gives some mild appreciation to that, since Ren is a prick. That aside, my theory is that the unknown mission is the Freelancer's afterlife. This is their hell, somewhat. And Jackdaw's monologuing is Jackdaw talking to Finch at their grave. Let me explain. The setting of the unknown mission is the Score mission. I had initially theorized it was a combination of Finch's trauma materialized into his own personal hell, but then Freelance Heist came out and I was sort of right. The Score was of great significance to Finch's story. They also have a little guilt of their own, as they got their friends killed and was ultimately left with no choice but to take a life they didn't want, a life of crime. How is this the freelancer's afterlife? Jackdaw is obviously talking about the events that happened after Finch's passing, and even tells him to rest in peace. It's pretty much 100% certain that this is a very dead freelancer. Well, in their own personal hell, Finch can hear Jackdaw, and they are not happy. But how? Does Entry Point have some supernatural properties and Jackdaw somehow figured out how to enter Finch's hell? No, obviously not. Jackdaw is speaking to their grave. He doesn't expect it to reach Freelancer at all. He's aimlessly muttering his apology to their grave out of pure guilt and sorrow. The grave, a symbol of the Freelancer's death, is just carrying those words to that hell. Jackdaw is apologizing for all the pain he mistakenly brought to Finch. This is Jackdaw's long-awaited apology for his blindness and anger. He lost some of his loved ones due to his actions. Rose, Finch, and almost Sparrow. Oh, and a tiny bit of Ren. Yes, you heard me right. Ren is included. I can confirm that Jackdaw had some affection for him. In Ren's log file Sociopath, it says that his body was found in a shallow grave, which is not the one he and Finch dug, because theirs was deeper. It would have been a bastard move to throw Ren in his own grave that he dug. Although funny. But it would have saved time for Jackdaw, and like he would care about an enemy. But he actually does, because he didn't do that to Ren. He made him his own grave, but it was very shallow since, well, Jackdaw had to be fast because the freelancer was currently dying. The fact he even bothered to give Ren a grave, and his own one at that, is enough to prove that despite everything, Jackdaw still harbored some affection towards our little douchebag over here. That's right, to add insult to injury, Jackdaw killed someone that he still kind of cared for to save the freelancer. Yikes. Honestly, I'm pretty sure he felt a stench of grief, but not nearly as much as the rest of his children. He would have definitely thrown out Ren for a victory. Anyways, when Jackdaw starts speaking in the unknown mission, SWAT begins appearing. The freelancer is far from pleased with Jackdaw. They're mad at him for doing this to them and Rose. Notice how the SWAT only begin appearing when Jackdaw starts speaking. The SWAT is symbolism. To the freelancer, the enemy is here. I'm also pretty sure that this is why the Finch is held back in their hell. They're an angry, unrest spirit. They can't travel to any good afterlife because they won't allow it. Oh, and also probably because of the numerous war crimes under their belt. Honestly, whether or not the freelancer even deserves heaven is a huge point of controversy. But personally, I think that the character of, well, a character is more important than their actions, but their actions are also extremely important and can outweigh the character's morality, intentions, or personality. Am I implying that Finch deserves heaven? Maybe. Keep watching. When Jackdaw continues speaking and shows that he's sorry and really has learned, Finch is touched, and that is when the SWAT team's deceased. Finch listened to him and understood. They decided to forgive after hearing that Jackdaw truly was sorry. This is when the mission ends. And this is also why I think that Finch went to heaven after all is said and done. When the mission starts, Finch suddenly appears in the elevator. I believe he was transported from the fires of hell to a private place where he could hear Jackdaw's words out. Unconvinced? Is it really just a coincidence that the mission starts out at the starting point of the second half of Score? Also know that the fact that it starts at the second half implies that, wait, there is a second part to Finch's eternal resting place. Hell is their first stop, but not their last. Not to mention that they have all of their gear to battle off the SWAT. I highly doubt that Afterlife lets you bring additional luggage to your forever death home. They were suddenly taken here from the actual horrible hell. Then, once the freelancer let their anger die and forgave Jackdaw, since they were no longer an unrestful spirit, they were able to ascend to heaven. So hey, whether or not you think the freelancer deserves heaven, it certainly looks like that's where they ended up. It is a complicated matter, and I don't think it's 100% of either side. If this is how the Entry Point afterlife works, it's very possible we will see Rose there as well. In fact, I'd say she's almost certainly there. She wouldn't be in spiritual unrest because she literally just got finished being depressed at Jackdaw for being vengeful. Her suddenly turning on her own morals and becoming vengeful and angry too would be stupid. So Finch and Rose are almost certainly now at peace with Jackdaw. Unfortunately, there is no way they can verbally express this to him. They're dead. They can't communicate to Jackdaw that he's forgiven. So he continues to suffer of guilt. A drawing Hollow, a QA of Entry Point herself, made also has a transparent message of dead Rose and Finch saying our deaths were your fault, while Jackdaw looks guilty and Sparrow is crossed out. This pretty much helps confirm our theory to a T. Jackdaw feels guilty over everything. Rose and Finch are blaming him in the drawing because, well, duh. And Sparrow is crossed out because he feels guilty over her too. Just because she didn't die like the others doesn't mean that he didn't wrong her. He neglected her just as much, and he's insanely lucky that Sparrow is so blindly pure and forgiving. You may be thinking, how did Jackdaw wrong Sparrow? Just wait until later in the video. And I do mean quite later, but trust me, he hurt her. But just because all is said and done doesn't mean Jackdaw's letting that go himself. Sunset proves this even further, which is annoying because I guess he felt guilty long before it was confirmed. But that's what I get for making a theory time. That's almost 2 years late. Sunset also has symbolism. Sparrow's all grown up. She's moved on from her crazy young adult years. She's moved on from the war. She's living her life and is about to get married. But Jackdaw refuses to let go of the past. I've said this in my Sunset video already, but this isn't just regular old guilt. It's guilt that Jackdaw refuses to get past. And any death or event that's determined to be your fault, you're obviously going to grieve. You might never be the same, but one way or another, you're expected to move on someday, even if it's not entirely. But if it comes to the point where years have passed and you still are intensely grieving the situation like it just happened, this is usually, not always, but usually a form of self-torture. Some people refuse to let themselves heal from trauma. They dwell in it on purpose. They don't let themselves forget it. Why would someone do something like this? If they're self-aware of it, they usually do it because they believe they deserve it. Or sometimes it's a subconscious thing. Either way, it's exactly what Jackdaw is doing. He misses the old days, before he was betrayed, when he was still in Halcyon, when he thought Kingfisher was still his best friend, which is why that picture is put up. They're both very young in the picture, so it's clear they've been friends for a very, very long time. He won't let himself move on. He won't let himself forget what he's done, or how much better things used to be when he thought things were great and he wouldn't be betrayed. What exactly the unknown mission is now solved, but what about the poems? I can decipher them as well. The first poem, I'll repeat again, quote, 6 little pumpkins, turning of the wheel, 5 little pumpkins, none of them real, 4 little pumpkins, whispers in the dark, 3 little pumpkins, on their last spark, 2 little pumpkins, nothing left to dread, 1 little pumpkin, already dead, end quote. I'm confident that these 6 little pumpkins are all the operatives that Jackdaw was tied to, including himself and excluding Ryan. Jackdaw, Rivera, Rose, Sparrow, Finch, and Red. And it slowly counts down like going down a checklist, leaving out each pumpkin that doesn't fit the next line. For example, turning of the wheel I believe means ongoing action, the ongoing war. Like a wheel turning, the war is going. All 6 pumpkins, or 6 characters, were indeed caught up in the war, quite intensely in fact. All of them have traits about them that make them stand out from any other regular operative caught up in the Shadow War. 5 little pumpkins, none of them real. Real has various definitions, and one of them is true or genuine. So I believe this phrase means that some of the characters are acting in a way they should not, or are feeling in a way that they would normally not, or just straight up lying to them. If this is true, the phrase now excludes Rivera. She stuck to her guns out of all of her involvement in the war, never once settling or staying defeated. She was always true to herself and eventually escaped Halcyon. So now she's eliminated from the equation, leaving Jackdaw, who is vengeful through the war, Rose, who is following a side she hated for the sake of Jackdaw, Sparrow, being a little too forgiving for Jackdaw's actions, Finch, also running on vengeance, and Wren, who has ASPD and never had the chance to be his true self. 4 little pumpkins, whispers in the dark, is an easy one. The liars, the traitors, the ones who didn't stay true to Halcyon. Well, Jackdaw tried, but you get the idea. All of them defected the Phoenix except for Wren, so now he's eliminated from the equation. 3 little pumpkins, on their last spark, is also almost just as it sounds. These mean 3 characters who are on the absolute edge of their sanity. They're about to crumble underneath the pressure of the war. So we just gotta think, who wasn't about to lose it? Well, Sparrow was sane throughout this whole thing. She was hurt by Jackdaw's neglect, but will always brush aside and did her best to keep her head high, so now she's gone too. 2 little pumpkins, nothing left to dread, insinuates that the end game was predicted. These 2 characters know how the war will end. This eliminates the freelancer because he couldn't have predicted anything. Every rapid twist and turn was of total shock to him. Rose knew that this path of vengeance would lead to death and misery. She knew from the very start. Jackdaw was always going to win in his mind. He would never stop until he got what he wanted. Dying? You think this man can die? He had a burning building dropped on him and an entire organization after his head, and that still didn't kill him. So what about 1 little pumpkin already dead? For the final line, I believe this means Rose. Rose was long dead, literally and metaphorically. She was the first to die, excluding Ryan yet again, and she was dead inside and miserable. She hated what Jackdaw was doing, hurt by Wren's lack of interest, and knew this vengeance path would have a horrible ending, thus leaving Rose as the last standing pumpkin. Congratulations, Rose, we're having every horrible description apply to you. Are we done? Nope, not yet. There's a second poem from 2021. That's how light this theory is, so now let's cover that. This is actually about 12 pumpkins, which once again, I believe embodies 12 characters out of 14. That also means that Ryan, or one of the Canadians, actually has a chance of being included this time. Awesome. Instead of this poem being a process of elimination just like last time, each character just gets an individual line. I will review each poem line and assign them to each character. One decided they should turn is one of the more ambiguous lines, but I believe it applies to the director. By turn, he turned on his best friend, all for the sake of greed. One decided they should burn is also mysterious, but I believe this means Wren. Remember that the assassination attempt on Jackdaw was committed in a fire that they caused. He decided that, indeed, his mentor should pay for his betrayal. He didn't just want bang bang Jackdaw's dead, he left him there, shot but alive, on purpose. He obviously intended to kill him via the fire. Stone cold Wren. One decided to win the fight is Jackdaw, obviously. One decided to do what's right is Rose, as it's explicitly acknowledged by Jackdaw that she was on a moral crusade. I know in my Rose and Wren theory I said it wasn't actually a moral crusade, it was something else, but I've changed my mind. I think it's both at once. Rose clearly has a big heart. It makes sense she wouldn't approve of her own ways. One decided to share the wealth as Ryan, obviously. He backed up Phoenix. But also, honestly disappointing. I was hoping Ryan had more of a story to him. One decided to leave in stealth is Rivera, backing out of the Shadow War. It also damn near confirms that if this does allude to Rivera, that the scientist is stealth and she lives. I already confirmed that her dying is impossible in earlier theories, like literally actually impossible. There was already evidence saying that it 100% happened, so the fact that this line is now here is just the true icing on the cake. Take that, doubters. One decided fly the best is Sparrow. She's the best pilot in Phoenix. In addition, she also desperately tried to get Jackdaw's attention, but he was neglectful and wouldn't give her the time of day. One decided to take a rest is Finch. They knew Black Dust was a suicide mission, and they did not care. Once the vengeance was done, Finch had zero reason to live, and my discussion about their personal afterlife proves that they wouldn't have lived on with Jackdaw. They were upset with him. So the rest part of that line really means eternal rest. Death. It's time to stop and die. Oof. One decided to aim the gun as Jade. This embodies her decision to kill Anna's assassin and her choice to pursue the crime and help out Dimitri. Anna is Dimitri's wife, by the way. It was confirmed that that's her name. One decided to hurt no one is Dimitri, a man who was such a pacifist that he refused to carry a gun despite his job's conditions. One decided to take it all is Harvey and his trauma-induced greed. He tried to keep all the gold. One had no choice but to fall as Falcon. He was forced into Halcyon. It was either join them or get arrested. Jackdaw was too blinded by his thirst for vengeance and need to be victorious. He mistakenly shoved aside the ones he cared for so he could see his goal. Rose's final monologuing moments in the kill house were just for Jackdaw, wishing he could have just A, left Halcyon alone and wander freely so he didn't drag them through all this pain by accident, and B, open his remaining eye and actually see what he was doing. But he doesn't realize until it's too late. Rose's death was not an eye-opener. Instead of realizing he was putting the ones he cared about through mental distress, he used it to fuel his rage and anger. It hurt a lot, but he was still blind. He only saw it as another reason to end the director and Halcyon. Then Finch died, and that is when he truly realizes, were the lives of both of them, and all the other innocents and people caught in the crossfire, really worth it? He is stuttering as he talks to the dead freelancer in the aftermath of the connection forever being cut. He finally realizes and feels immense guilt for his actions, but it's too late. There's nothing he can do to change anything. They're dead, and it's his fault for not seeing their pain. Victory was too much. Once he finally got it, he realized the things he hurt and lost along the way. Not just Rose and Finch, Sparrow as well. Finally, you get to know how he neglected her. On International Sparrow Day, which yes, I know isn't canon, but I believe it's still meant to add to Sparrow's character. If you watch Payoff, Jackdaw joins the conversation. Quote, "Sparrow, what are you doing?" She responds with, "Look, it's J-Dog. Go to your job." Fine. And stop calling me J-Dog. End quote. Sparrow only responds with empty, sad silence, rather mysterious and ambiguous for a joke cutscene, which is why I think it's important. Does Jackdaw care for Sparrow? How could he not? He's been coordinating her as she pilots for years. If she hasn't been fired by now, he probably likes her. But he hasn't been acting like it, and it's been hurting Sparrow. That is why Sparrow's crossed out in Hall's picture. He feels bad. After her family died, something confirmed my Sparrow theory. She grew attached to him and just wanted some of his attention, but he was always too focused on victory, and this hurts her. Ironically, this is just like Rose and Ren's relationship. Rose just wanted his affection, but Ren is just cold and dismissive. This is also from my Rose and Ren theory. Jackdaw now feels incredible guilt. Look at all he's done, and he finally sees it. But it's too late to do a thing. Almost too late, that is. Sparrow is still alive. Nothing will ever make up for absolutely everything he's ever done. Nothing. But he can at least start acting like the fatherly figure that she deserves. He definitely owes all the ones he cared about an apology. And even the people he didn't know and were also affected an apology. But there is no way to right his wrong. The best he can do is try to finally father Sparrow right, and prove that he's changed and that he is sorry. It's the least he could do. And considering that Sparrow continues to visit him, and they even hugged, it seems as though he's doing his best to live up to that task. Summary time. The director and Jackdaw were best friends for most of their lives together. Then the director banded with other directors to create Halcyon and encouraged Jackdaw, his best friend, to join. Jackdaw got to train Rose and Ren, who he got attached to. Then, the director convinced Jackdaw that the other directors were horrible people that needed to die. Once Jackdaw took care of everyone, the director threw him under the bus in a sick twist of betrayal, making his actions public without telling anyone that he tricked and ordered him to do it. He orders Ren and Rose to assassinate their own mentor. Ren, being the meanie he is, doesn't hesitate and attempts to murder Jackdaw, but Rose steps in and rescues Jackdaw in secret. Jackdaw is infuriated and vows vengeance, and out of loyalty and morality, Rose chooses to help. They found Phoenix together. Rose is sent back to Halcyon as an informant. Jackdaw completely loses his heart, however, and begins neglecting Rose and treating her like a stranger since he's so focused on the war. That, combined with Ren's coldness, makes Rose feel miserable, alone, and already dead. He also recruits Sparrow, who loves him very much as a father, but he also neglects her. Then, Rose is tragically found out and murdered, and she directs him to Finch with her dying breaths. Jackdaw doesn't learn from this death, it only fuels his rage even more. Finch is about to get murdered as well by Ren, not because they were also a traitor, but because they were so close to Rose, they're taking them out too as a safety precaution. Jackdaw murders Ren, someone he considered his own son, to save Finch, and they join Phoenix. Finch also gets attached to Jackdaw, but the neglect remains the same. Finch eventually dies in the final mission, and only then does Jackdaw realize what horrible things he's done, but it is way too late. He kills off his former friend, the Director, and Halcyon falls. But he's now haunted by his crimes and guilt. Sparrow, his only surviving child, is such an angel she forgives him straight away with great mercy. Jackdaw mournfully offers an apology to Finch's grave, unaware that he just freed the dead Finch spirit from their chains of anger and trauma. The poems from each Halloween event describe the entry point characters. Sparrow moves on and thrives, but Jackdaw dwells on the past and hurt, and lives in his depression to this very day. And that's that. Oh wait, the living in depression part, that would be true if he didn't kill himself. Oh yeah, it's a popular theory that Jackdaw actually shot himself after sunset because it gave all of Phoenix's leftover funds to Sparrow. Plus he was depressed with nothing but a cat. Giving all of someone's valuables to a loved one is usually what is done before someone decides to, well, remove themselves from the gene pool. So this theory is actually extremely plausible, which means Jackdaw might not be living in depression to his very day. He could be dead, which is sad. Jackdaw got a sad ending, but to be honest, everything I just summarized was only the crimes to his relationships. He caused so many other deaths and crimes, so unfortunately, who's to say it isn't deserved? I highly doubt that whatever god lives in the entry point universe is going to be so sparing like they were with his kids when he kicks the bucket. Or where he is now if he already has. Based off the afterlife rules, I think Jackdaw's actions outweigh his regret and the fact that he took down a criminal organization. If hell is his fate, his only saving grace in my opinion is if he really tried to make up for his crimes the best he could. Not just fathering Sparrow the right way, but also donating to charity or something. Otherwise I'd say this old man is probably doomed to fall. See y'all.